All right, welcome again to Social Distillation, the submarine still of the internet, where we attempt to drop the bead and pour white lightning straight onto your brain. What are we talking about today, Samo?
Well, we've got Wheel of Time, and since we've been overthinking 14 books and
Yeah.
we're about to finish, I got my overthinking sharks on today.
Well, since we're at the end here, I got my "You're Killing Me" small shirt on because uh we're gonna try and power through the text, and then if there's time, I may offer some general thoughts on the ending. But we're gonna do and if not multiple epilogue episodes to talk not just about the ending, but some of the bigger themes, points, theories, etc.
Yeah, so an
of the
important an
series.
important day to leave comments
Mhm.
because we want to know what you're thinking about at the end of these books too,
Yeah,
and then we can shout into the ether about it. We do
yeah.
have one comment from last time, and we read it at the end of our social episode. But for those that are just here from Wheel of Time, Isomorphic weighed in, and it's kind of a long one. I need to get back to reading. Blitzing Wheel of Time and sharing my thoughts with you has been a blast. Thank you. It's been a blast for us too. Also helped me through some tough times, and we're glad to be part of that. And hopefully, it just keeps getting better from here. I picked up Shogun, pretty good so far, and I'm planning on rereading Wheel of Time, but I want to figure out a system for reading that goes beyond notes. Maybe write short essays on each chapter or chunks. Perhaps you guys could suggest something. And this is the thing I wanted to touch on here because I was just driving home and I was like, "Whoa, voila, I thought about it." That's what we did with this podcast here. Is this is officially my third full reread, although I read earlier books over and over and over again every time a new book came out. But yeah, it's that next step. It wasn't just rereading it and saying, huh, I got something different out of it. It was rereading it and sharing our thoughts with others. We did it on it with a camera in our face, but if you want to write it down or whatever, so there's multiple ways of skinning this cat, and this is one of them. But if you do write those short essays, I mean, feel free to share them with us. Maybe I'll leave our email address in the show notes here for the podcast. So I'll leave that in the show notes. Remind me if I didn't do it to put it back in there. But yeah, send us those, and we would love to read them. Uh, let's see what's the rest of the comments. Uh, I have this intuition that it is hard to articulate that works of fiction, even treatises on sciences, have something in common, something about their structure, their discipline of writing, something that half jokingly could be referred to as studying the blade. And once you do it thoroughly a couple of times, all the rest becomes much easier. As if reading a book on the same subject by different author, you have your mental models ready. I want to start figuring out these mental models common to everything. Yes, and this is kind of the story of my educational background is they'd say getting a PhD is becoming more and more specific till you have a piece of paper. Uh, I hate that knowledge. This actually makes me not want to get the PhD and just get
Mhm.
a shit ton of master's degrees because I can't do that. I loved seeing the connection of everything. If I do get another one, I mean, maybe I go to physics or maybe I go to economics because they're also organic systems, and I love the way they all rhyme. All organic systems rhyme. The brain rhymes with the body, which is where I'm at now, which rhymes with, our interactions as a social being. And the little economics, I outsource my knowledge to people like Glenn Lowry, uh, and it's just, oh, it makes sense to me when you explain it as an organic system. So yeah, all of these things do rhyme, and then we put that into this book and we're like, oh, he was a physics major, and this is or physics. He had a physics degree. He was a nuclear engineer. So all of these things came together, and it's like, oh, that actually makes sense from a scientific standpoint, not just a prose standpoint. And then you add your history background to it, and we're kind of talking about the same things in a lot of different ways.
Mhm.
Uh, Now, what you got to be careful of is developing a heuristic that makes you blind to some things. So you got to be careful of that. Because I have fallen down that trap a few times, and you kind of have to have a model for consciously pulling yourself out of it. And one of the things that I did to do that was one of the reasons I went back to school is because I the cure for your bias is other people's bias. So I'm getting other people's bias laid on me, and I have to respond to it. And if I can't respond to it, that means that I had a blind spot. So there's multiple ways to go about it. You don't have to spend thousands of dollars to go to school. You can just find groups of people, probably. Uh, Good luck on the internet because they won't be friendly. As Houston Bourbon Club has shown me on their Facebook page, nobody wants to talk nicely. But yeah, anything you want to add to that?
I'm resisting the urge to go off on a wild tangent here because I went down this
No too wild of tangents, little tangents today,
I went
little
down
tangents.
this rabbit hole earlier today on poliomyelitis. And one of the problems with studying it early on was something called Koch's postulate, which I had never heard of before. And basically, he was this scientist researcher in the late 1800s that, oversimplifying it, basically his postulate was any syndrome or disease can be narrowed down to a single bacteria or virus, a single microbe, a single
Mm,
cause, essentially. There must be a cause. If there's an effect, there is a cause. Well, the problem with that is that that's not true. To your point, biological systems are very complicated.
hmm
So, in following that idea, it narrowed the focus of research and said, well, there must be one thing causing this. So, yeah, if you get too narrow of your focus, you're going to be ignoring all these other things and then wondering, but wait a minute, I found the cause. Why hasn't the effect stopped? No, you found a cause.
hmm
So, yeah, just I like the idea, but yeah, don't target fixate. Just realize that you're finding an idea.
Yeah, and when you do it, one of the cures for like what we call the Dunning-Kruger effect, where you think you're better at something than you
Mhm.
actually are, to oversimplify the effect, is be receptive to all the stimulus around you, even if it makes you uncomfortable. It doesn't mean you listen to it all. Just be receptive to it. Let yourself mull it over. Maybe even play Steelman. Playing Steelman, saying, "Okay, I saw this thing that I don't really agree with, but let me see if I can make the best argument for them that I
Mhm.
can." And if you can do that, sometimes you convince yourself of their point, and sometimes you strengthen. You make the steel harder, going back to your blade analogy, you fold more steel in your own blade. So if you do it that way, then you're more likely to get to the proper result than if you just try to fight the thing that's coming at you.
Yeah. All right. Let's get to it and try and power through because I really wanted to get to the end. Um,
Yes. Okay,
and
so I had
chapter 45 is where we're starting here. Tendrils of Mist,
okay,
which
yeah,
for
we
me is
do start
page
with Matt. Okay, so
863.
the other thing can wait a
Yeah,
couple paragraphs.
and
Yeah.
my first thought just from the title, and I texted you this last night, was
And my response,
I
and we have to talk about
yeah,
that.
I groaned and I rolled my eyes and I thought, well, maybe it's not as bad as I remember. It's as bad as I remember, but
It's worse than I remember.
we don't get to it in this chapter, because this just introduces something that has been teased for a bit and now it just kind of shows up. But first, we start with Matt and the dice tumbling in his head and this strong pull he's feeling to go to Rand. And um, so it's 864 for me. He's talking to Grady. I need a gateway. I have to go to Shalgul. And Grady says something interesting here, which um I somehow kind of missed, and we've been talking about this the whole way through of how time is distorting and things are weird at Shalgul, and Grady actually quantifies it with what I think is a big statement of something or maybe multiple somethings. Um, which is probably Jordan explaining without explaining because he liked to do that. What is actually going on here? Grady says, where is it? About he's explaining why he can't make a gateway. Something's happening at Shalgul. Gateways opened there are deflected. The pattern is warped, if that makes any sense. Here's the money quote. The valley isn't one location any longer. but many, and a gateway can't pinpoint it. And as Matt's response, Grady, that made about as much sense to me as playing a harp with no fingers, which I think I wonder how much of that is Sanderson responding to Jordan as we the reader don't get it. Because he would say things like that, and the readers would go, huh?
Well, I mean, as we speculated so much, where do the portal stones play into this? Where
Mm-hmm,
does the world of
mm-hmm,
dreams play into this?
mm-hmm.
Is this the hub of reality? Is it all possible realities? Is it all of these things? And realistically, the way Rand has been fighting the Dark One, there it could be a sense of multiple realities that are
We actually
being
get a
formed in the
confirmation of that
moment.
here
Yeah,
later,
yeah.
actually. All right. And then out
Which
of
is funny
nowhere,
because, as we're going to see here in a little bit, Perrin hacked the system by using the world of dreams.
exactly.
Yeah.
Um, and then out of nowhere, Padan Fane is back.
Yeah, but he's calling
Um,
himself Shy Sam or
uh-huh,
Shy Sam Shy.
uh-huh.
Yeah. Where did this name come from? This is again, this to me is Sanderson just trying to be cool. I'm going to make this cool
I
name that I had in my head.
I don't think so. Um, I think what this is because it has this thought. Let's see, where is it? So it's a couple paragraphs down at the opening of this section, and he's talking about, yeah, here it is. It's the paragraph that starts, he walked at the center of the bank of mist. He was not reborn yet, not completely. He would need to find a place to infest, a place where the barriers between worlds was thin.
Mhm.
There he could seep his self into the very stones and embed his awareness into that location. I think what is happening here is you're supposed to infer this is actually the core of the evil of Shadar Logoth. That Mordeth was an avatar of whatever this is.
Which is funny because the way that it's brought to you in the previous books is a result of the human evil that Mordeth was the major player in.
Mm-hmm. And actually, what it seems like is no, Mordeth was some sort of avatar or manifestation, or like Thane, almost like Matt was for a little bit, an infection of this thing. Or you see it with the way the mist is using these puppets, like that creepy fungus that turns ants into zombies in the Amazon, and it's horrifying. Um, something like that. That it's just a meat puppet out there. And there's also, I wonder if there's a little bit of a hint, a little bit of an homage to like Lovecraftianness here. Like this is some kind of old world, you know, something from the dark deep places god, because the point about the someplace where the barrier between worlds has thinned, that maybe this Shaisam, the origin of Shadar Logoth, of Mordeth, was actually came from a mirror world, maybe,
Hmm.
or from some other place.
So first of all, that made me want to go ahead and now that I'm going to have not Wheel of Time reading, dive back into Lovecraft. But the no, that's what bothered me about it because
Mm-hmm.
it was adding something at the last minute
Yes.
that we that was actually perfectly fine being something new that manifested from human nature.
Yeah, because one of the problems with this, it's said almost in passing, but this is a big effing deal, is some place where the barriers were thin. Well, wait a minute. Does that mean somehow the barrier was thin at Arid Hole, and that's why Shaisam ended up there? How and why? It
Exactly. Yeah.
there are way too many questions, and it's okay to, like, throw out questions. Jordan, one of his favorite sayings when he was asked things at Q&As was, Rafa, read and find out. And
Mhm.
he later uh explained that doesn't mean you're going to get an answer. So sometimes it means read and find out by thinking about it, by having more questions than answers, by, whatever. He said, I'm not going to answer every question. And that's part of reading and finding out is you may find out you don't get an answer.
Hmm.
So to an extent, that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just, to your point, this is something big way late. And that's a recurring theme in these last couple of chapters for me is something really big just happened here, and we have no time to let it sit, to let it breathe, to really feel it out.
Which is why I'm wondering how much Sanderson understood some of the source material. Not that he didn't read it and like it, that understood the source material, because I think he just felt the need to explain something.
Yeah.
When
So
when when we could have speculated all day long the nature of Eridol, the nature of Shadow Logoth, the nature of how the dagger works, and how Payton Fane goes, and we all had our good explanations in our head. We've talked about him every time we've come across him coming out of here, and he could have just showed up and been doing this thing to all the Trollocs and the humans and everything, and we would have been perfectly fine with our explanation. But now he
mhm.
tried to provide us with an explanation here where I don't think
Yeah.
he understood the source material.
Yeah. And it's fine that the underlying evil has its own name, has its own identity, that Mordeth wasn't it. Mordeth was just the avatar. That part's not what we're complaining about. The fact that there's this, who the hell is Shai-Sam? Where did this come from? I
But there's
will
a
say
difference
though,
between having something that infected Mordeth and saying something that
mhm,
that became something bigger because of him, and that there's a difference with that. And I
I
think I
will say
think it was
though,
implied the other way. Yeah.
I did have an interesting thought in this section with this possible new weird origin of where this came from, which is what it made me think about, again, setup and payoff way back in book one. I believe the term she uses is when Moiraine is talking about Padan Fane going through the ways, and one of the kids says, "How did he survive Machin Shin?" And she says he didn't. That Machin Shin found him, and I believe the phrase she uses is found in him a kindred spirit. Well, Machin Shin is also some sort of weird, so evil, or perhaps so different it's, you know, like the Elfin and the Eilfin. They're just so different to us, it's evil. And it comes from some weird in between place.
Hmm.
So maybe that's why it found a kindred spirit, is that this also came from some weird in between place.
Yeah, but from what I was understanding when they're talking about Match and Shin, is it again? It's a byproduct of a flaw in the ways.
It was theorized that it came from the taint because it was Sidon was used to grow it.
Hmm.
But that might not be true. That was just what was theorized.
Yeah, but at the same time, that is left in our imagination. We had the same thing
Mm-hmm.
with the mist and Shadow Logoth and the evil
Yeah.
that came out of it. So,
All right, moving
yeah,
along.
yeah, we spent too much time on something dumb.
Then we get a section of Gaul's point of view, which I believe this is the first POV of his we ever have, and maybe the only one.
Mm, I th I'm wanting to say we've had one before, but
Okay.
yeah, don't quote me
Um,
on that.
Overall, it's a pretty good section. It's just annoying because I don't know why he does this, but the first half page to page is really off-putting of what is otherwise a really good section, a really well-written section by Sanderson. It seems like when he doesn't get, he's like that nervous nerd who starts talking too much because he's
Mm.
nervous. And it's like he does that with his characters. It reminded me of Matt and Talmanis from the first book. It's, why are they talking so much and why are they so dumb? Why are you having Gaul, one, talk so much in the middle of fighting, and two, why is all of his talking strange quips? It seems very off-putting. The In his head, he's fine, but he's talking way too much and it's silly talking.
Hmm.
I will say though, my favorite thing about the section is when Perrin shows up, because I like that when when Perrin goes Super Saiyan or hulks up or whatever, insert your nerd reference here. I like that we don't see that initially from Perrin's point of view. It's from not only from someone else's point of view, but one of his closest friends. and it scares the hell out of him. So much so that he runs away. It's like, I don't want to be any part of this. I cannot be around this. I need to go find shelter.
Yeah, but the pragmatist in me says, why didn't Perrin just bash Slayer when Slayer didn't know he was there?
Yeah,
I mean, it would have saved us a lot of pages. I mean,
yeah. Well, we needed more fighting. Anyway, um, all right. Then we get back to Matt, and he and Oliver are flying on a tow rockin'.
yeah, yeah, I know. Yeah.
Okay. My first thought, and I'm wondering if yours was the same, was why is Matt afraid of flying? And Matt's freaking out here, and especially since Oliver is the kid in a candy store, almost literally, and he loves it. It might actually be funny if, first of all, as always, Sanderson hadn't overdone it and turned Matt into a clown. But my initial thought was it made no sense because we've seen Matt scaling the frickin' stone. We've seen him running
Mhm.
across
Oh
rooftops.
yeah, and scaling the Teresian Palace and all of these places. Yeah. So, but at the same time, I think what he's trying to do here is make the fact that he unhooks himself to go to the front more heroic. But yeah, with previous history, it wouldn't have been
Yeah.
it's not like he's a fresh to heights kind of character that we could have. I mean,
Well,
Perrin, we don't see anything of that. We could
yeah.
have Perrin afraid of heights. He's this big hulking figure, and all of a sudden he's up high and he's like, oh my God, we could have something like that. But Matt already proved he's gonna, like you said, scaling the stone, something that's not even like got handholds realistically. So
Hmm.
it's
And he thought at the time, he kind of shrugged and was like, well, this is no big deal. This is just like when me and Perrin and Rand would go camp out
mm-hmm.
in the mountains and go rock climbing. We would climb cliffs because it was fun because we're boys and that's what we do. Um, so to him it was no big deal. The only thought I had as well, maybe we do see in that moment in the Dragon Reborn that when he gets back on the ground and he kind of comes to his senses, like he's in this Tauverin haze, almost like he's kind of high, like he's been doped with a drug. Um, And then when he realizes what he's done, he does have a little bit of a freak out of, holy heck, what did I just do? But so that could be a justification. But to me, that wasn't a, oh my gosh, I'm afraid of heights. That was a, holy crap, that was reckless. That was
Mm-hmm.
unnecessarily reckless,
Yeah,
is
well,
is what it was.
yeah, and the worst thing is that it's actually in multiple ways it's the wrong character for that because not only do we get the heights, but you could add an element of, oh, he's on an animal that he doesn't have control over and all these things. But we get plenty of history of him being an amazing horseman, and all of these. So like I have trouble getting on a horse because when I was 15, I was forced to saddle break mules. That does not make that does not make you comfortable on a horse because you that your job is to get thrown off of them.
Hmm.
But so I'm uncomfortable with that. But we have a history of 13 and 90% other books of him being very comfortable on an animal
Hmm.
and adept in being able to handle them. So both elements that would play in there, heights and on an animal, make no sense.
Yeah. Um, there's another thing. Then it ends with something that's really cool, but also kind of doesn't make sense, which is the very end of this chapter. Panicked, Matt looked about. The banner, I dropped the bloody banner because the heroes of the Horn, as we established in the Great Hunt, they follow the banner. The Horn summons them, but they follow the banner. Um, Ulver smiled, looking up at the sign made by the swirling clouds. It will be fine. We're beneath his banner already, he said, then lifted the horn and blew a beautiful note. Okay, it's a very cool moment, except it doesn't make a lot of sense. It is very un-Ulver like from what we've seen of him so far. unless you are trying to establish that he is wise beyond his years, except we've had a number of points of view where this has not been really set up.
Well,
That's a
not only
very mature philosophical thing for like a 10-year-old to say.
yeah, not only that, we have an inconsistency here because the first two times we see them, Falm, and then in the previous chapters in the last battle, is under the dragon banner, not under the ancient symbol of the Aes Sedai.
No, actually, when they show up at the last battle, Matt has the Aes Sedai banner.
Oh, it's not both?
He has that's the banner he pulls out
Oh,
when the
okay.
when the horn
Okay.
when the heroes show up.
Yeah. Well, then why did they fight under the dragon banner in the
I don't
first
know.
one? Yeah. So the
Seems a little odd.
yeah.
Yeah.
So either way, we have an inconsistency, whether it's within this book or within the
Hmm.
full series. But yeah, it almost seems like they should be under the dragon banner if we unless you would have to retroactively make all the banners the same. It was the ancient Aes Sedai symbol way back in book two, which
Hmm.
someone like Moiraine would have been like, oh, that's the ancient Aes Sedai symbol, not that's the dragon banner.
Hmm. All right, chapter 46. Right off the bat, there's this very brief rant section, and I find it interesting that when he finally comes out of this, whatever it was, wherever it was with the Dark One, and he comes back into reality and time resumes, the first thing he says is, "You don't matter any longer, Alon." And I found that interesting because I was wondering, is that because Rand realizes he's already won, or did that time with the Dark One, has he just realized what the real confrontation is, and that Alon is just a distraction?
Well, and also he's got the revelation that Alon was misunderstood in his
Hmm.
in his reasoning for fighting this battle. He's not going to get what he wants. He's
Yeah,
not going to be he's not going to be under, as Dawkins would say, eternal anesthesia at this point. He's going to be spit back out in the pattern over and over and over again, just under the Dark One's
yeah.
uh, way of seeing things. So yeah, it's
So then he draws a knife and he throws it at Alana. And we switch to Nynaeve's point of view, which, all right, this is what I was referencing of the so much happens here in these last couple of chapters, and it all happens too fast. It's not that a lot is happening, and none of it is given really the time it needs and deserves. I think I think the point of this, to some extent at least, is either in Jordan's notes or Sanderson himself was trying to give Alana her own Varen moment,
hmm.
because one of the last things he wrote, is one of my favorite scenes is Varen and Egwene there at the end of Knife of Dreams, and it's so perfectly written. It's some of Jordan's best work, and it's so poignant, such a gut punch on multiple levels, and it's so freaking heroic by Varen. And I think that this was supposed to be kind of that in miniature, but it just happens so fast that there's no time to let it sink in, and so you have to think about it and kind of post hoc justify, wow, that was really cool on Alana's part, of she had the physical control and the mental wherewithal to, no, it's fine, I can release him.
Which is funny because she's fiery, but she's not stupid. Immediately upon being kidnapped by the dark,
Yeah,
she could have done that.
yeah.
She could have said, "Oh, they're going to use me for this. Let me make that not an issue."
Well, again, here's another little thing that is supposed to be a big deal, but it just goes by in a snap, which is Nynaeve realizes it was the herbs she gave her. I brought her out of her stupor. It awakened her. And this is Nynaeve thinking, is Alana gets this moment because Nynaeve always carries her herbs around. And even though she couldn't heal with the power, she was able to do enough that it saved Rand. And then immediately we get a before we could either have time for even have time for that, we get another big deal, which just is gone in a blink, which is Morden realizing that that plan has failed, takes out another knife, and he cuts himself. And it causes Rand to drop Kalendor as it hurts his own hand. Morden dropped his sword and stabbed his own right hand with the knife. Rand twitched suddenly, and Kalendor dropped from his grip as if his hand somehow hurt from Morden's attack. And this is Nynaeve's point of view, so she doesn't understand this link here. And so something big happened, and then something big happened, and then something big happened, and now we switch back to Perrin.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And this opening here is, you know, these first several paragraphs, yeah, for me it's the very top of page 873, just this one short paragraph. Slayer tried to fight back. He jumped, he shifted, he stabbed. Each time Perrin was there, jumping at him as a wolf, swinging at him as a man, buffeting him like the tempest itself. Slayer got a wild look in his eyes. He raised his shield, trying to put it between himself and Perrin. Perrin, blah blah blah. Without thought, now he became instinct only. The rapid fire change of scenery, change of Perrin himself from man to wolf, and the way he's attacking. I've mentioned this before, but Perrin's stuff through the world of dreams, through these last three books as he's been training with Hopper, and then now here the climax of it with his fight with Slayer, to me, is why this should have been an animated series. Because it's just way too expensive to do it right and make it not look cheesy and really.
If they borrow from something else, they did the warping of realities, kind of teleporting thing very well in The Witcher. When Yennefer would warp from one place to another. So that was actually done okay. And you can probably do that from dream to life if you do it in kind of the same way. But this would be an extensive scene using even that. So it's he should have whacked him in the back of the head when he was looking at Gaul. I mean, that would have.
So he chases after him, blah blah blah. Where is it? Okay, so for me it's page 875. This is where we get confirmation that it's not just the world of dreams and this world merging. And we kind of saw this, although Rand was in this place that was not, so he was able to pull on these threads and make these mirror worlds. Well, it's not just because he was there, or maybe it is because he was there that the mirror worlds are bleeding over into here, because this is the point where Perrin. So it's the top of 875 for me. Something about this place, this moment, sent Perrin and Slayer into a spiraling series of flickers between worlds. Back and forth, flashes of moments and thoughts, flicker, flicker, flicker. Men died around them, some of dust, some of flesh. Their world alongside shadows of other worlds. Men in strange clothing and armor, fighting beasts of all shapes and sizes. Moments where the Aiel became Sanshin, who became something between the two, with spears and light eyes, but helmet shaped like monstrous insects, etc. So all the worlds, or at least the ones that still exist, I mean, because we've seen one where there is no humanity, all the worlds are fighting this last battle. And it's all bleeding over into this moment, which is something. Thoughts. You know, it's too much to kind of wrap my head around. But again, setup and payoff. I believe it was in The Dragon Reborn where Varen gives Egwene the notes about the world of dreams. And way back then, Jordan made the point that the portal stones, the world of dreams, traveling, it's all connected. And it was through studying that stuff that the ancients learned about this other stuff because it's all connected. And basically, the point she makes is there's our world, there's the mirror world, but then connecting it all is this other world that somehow sits between and connects everything, which is the world of dreams.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's all bleeding together here in this place. Um, and then the end of parents section here, I have to admit, this got me because somehow I had completely forgotten about this. The down near the very end of this section where he meets up with these maidens who join him in this fight, and then he hears in his mind, "Lead us, young bull," and he thinks, "Why must the heroes all be human?" And I had somehow completely forgotten about the fact that here at Shalgul, the horn calls spirit wolves to the fight as well,
Mm-hmm.
and that's who helps fight the dark hounds. That is the point of parent. That's the hunt he's supposed to lead, is these spirit wolves that have come from the world of dreams into the real world, summoned by the horn, which was a really cool moment.
See, I kind of was a little on the moment. It was when
Well,
you
I
think of
think it.
when you
Go
think of
ahead.
the mechanism, the horn is a human invention, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the fact that it would be tied to humans makes sense. So I almost wish there was another mechanism for that action. I don't mind the wolves coming out in spirit form and fighting the Darkhounds. That's fine because we still don't know the mechanism that makes Darkhounds, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, we could have had something counter to that as well. But the horn when we think about it, yeah, it could be calling to a hunt, but at the same time, it's a human call to the hunt. And it just seemed like an Uno in the series moment to me, where it was like, oh, all these people are dying, and oh my gosh, here they are back, and they're going to help us fight. And
I think it's the same thing I've been griping about, which is it comes so quickly after what,
something new that saves the day feels
yes,
contrived. Yeah.
and we just had this high. It's like the volume is just cranked all the way up, and there's no, there's no slow song to reset before you go back into the next upbeat song. It's just the mixtape is all at 11. And no, calm down, because we just had this pretty freaking epic moment where he finally defeats Slayer after all this back and forth over 3 books here, going at him in the world of dreams, and he has finally killed Slayer. And we have no time for that. And now all of a sudden it's, oh, there's Dark Hounds, and oh, now there's Spirit Wolves, and it's.
Well, and we just had a huge section of him figuring out this impossible thing of shifting between these worlds. And we
Mhm,
need the thing to shift between worlds. It could have been connected to that. It could have been we killed Slayer here. We need to join the fight. And
mhm.
Perrin, I will lead you on the last hunt. And he shifts reality and they're all there. That even would have been acceptable, as improbable as that is. But yeah, it just seemed
Well, and it
very.
kind of would have been set up because
Hmm.
remember, he uses that shifting to take all these maidens
Hmm.
to uh uh the cave entrance to the pit of doom to help protect Rand. And he says it takes a lot out of him to bring that many people into the world of dreams and then shift them and then shift back, but he was able to do it. So
Or
you
you could
almost
have
already
just
have a
had,
setup there.
or you could have just had the veil become so weak that all of a sudden the wolves
Hmm.
are there.
Hmm.
It's just these things would have all been set up. Having the horn be connected to them just seemed so. Eh, mm, eh, yeah, it works for the story, but it didn't do
The
it for me.
the only thing that I think I think it could have worked if there would have just been a little bit more setup for um where the horn came from and how old it is,
Hmm.
because we're told basically by Elias when we learn about this, or maybe even it's Varen who says it, but basically the wolves know of a time where men and wolves ran together, and this was a normal thing. And you get the impression that was the first age. So if the horn goes all the way back to that and isn't a relic from the Age of Legends, if we had had some hint that no, this isn't from the Age of Legends, it's older than that, then maybe. But yeah, all right, stop procrastinating, because then we finally get the reunion between Matt and Perrin, and it just occurred to me they have not met since the beginning of book 4.
Mm-hmm.
Rand and Matt have been together. Rand and Matt have had their meetings, but until oh no, I take that back, because the stupid badger
Mm-hmm.
scene.
Yeah.
So you had the stupid badger scene, and then we finally get the reunion of them together in battle, which I was waiting for, and I feel like a lot of people were, of, we're here at the end, and now they're no longer kids, and and it's so very meh. Of the back and forth between the two of them is kind of meh. And then
Well, it's the next section of Matt that I have it in, but it's also problematic, and I will tell you why.
Aaron's eyes opened wide. He stared at Matt's chest. There, a small white ribbon of silvery mist, Mashadar's mist, had speared Matt from behind through the chest. Matt looked at it, jerked once, and then tumbled off his horse. And that's the end of that chapter.
Yeah. Then we got Avienda for a quick little burst of Grendel trying to use compulsion on her while she's trying to make a
Yeah,
nuclear bomb, like Elaine did.
yeah, which just magically works. Again, there's way too much extra machina stuff happening
Well,
here.
except this one I don't mind as much because it does tie back to something she witnessed, saw happen, and it's showing she's willing to sacrifice herself for the
Yeah.
greater good because her experience with this is that it blew everything up and she's thinking she's going to do that right here. So
Hmm.
this one actually worked for me. The way it ended up, yeah, a little bit too much ex machina, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Um,
But the motivations were okay for me there. So
yeah.
this section not so bad. Next section of that is
And then we switch back to Shai Sam's point of view. And all right, what are your thoughts here?
for me it's 979, but it's like 5 paragraphs in. There's an odd thing about diseases I once heard, Fane. Once you catch a disease and survive, you can't get it again. That's problematic because when you got COVID, you still needed to get the shot or you didn't have an immunity. And I'm glad this came
Yeah.
up because apparently saying the word COVID boosts you in the algorithm.
Oh, hey, cool.
Yeah, cool.
I don't know why, but whatever. Um, my thought was grown. Surely you can't be serious. Surely this isn't what RJ was setting up from the first freaking book. But I guess it is.
Well, we'll just call this one it is what it is.
Yeah.
We have the final product. We don't know what the process was. And it was wah, wah.
Very wah wah. Yeah. Um, then we switch back to Perrin, and uh he has to, before he can get back to the fighting here at Shalgol, he pops back into the wolf dream, finds Gaul, and then takes him to be healed, because he owes it to Gaul, and he'll die if he doesn't. And then he has to go back to Shalgol. And the the end of this chapter here of um him wanting to go find Fail. And the very last sentence is, though it ripped him apart, parents sought the wolf dream one last time. I
Yeah.
feel like that moment, that sentence, and that sentiment, what he's going through, was the entire point of the slog,
That's what I was just gonna
as
say. Yeah.
as Scott dubbed it, and we have now uh uh culturally appropriated because it's such a fitting term.
Yeah,
But
so
you
this is
didn't need
theoretically
the
our
slog.
payoff. Yeah.
Yeah, you didn't need the slog to have this moment, and you definitely didn't need the slog to be a slog to be this moment of anyone should be able to empathize, sympathize, identify with the don't I owe it to my wife as a husband, but then also I kind of owe it to the world. If Rand loses, everybody dies. And so this being pulled in two directions at once and having to do what he has to do, you know, we didn't need to slog for it. Anyway, um,
Oh, it gets even worse, but it's the next parent section. So
yeah. Uh, but we end the chapter with Morden and Rand and Hannibal from the A team saying, "I love it when a plan comes together."
mm-hmm.
I actually thought this was pretty well done. You had lots of hints of it. It's like, you know, I love a good heist movie. You know, Ocean's 11, the first one, the sequels were kind of but like I like that style where they then show you how this all happened, and it's like, I get it now because you got hints of this. This is why this payoff works so well
Well, theoretically,
because
this is still written by Jordan himself. So
exactly.
yeah.
But you've had hints of this from men all along and from thinking through and figuring out Kalendor. And as Rand thinks, that was the last piece of the puzzle. And he purposely let Moradin take it because he knew it was a trap and Alon didn't. And so then the women are able to take control of him. And through him, then Rand is able to wield the true power. So to use that as a buffer so that the Dark One can't once again taint side N and or side R
Mm.
this time. But the interesting bit to me is the very last sentence because it made me go, I feel like this has got to be a clue to something, but I don't know what. And light exploded from him. Is that just pure power or I don't know. But the fact that it's just pure light, and I kind of had the thought of what is that and where is that coming from? Because I feel like that's significant. I mean, the title of the book is A Memory of Light, which was
Hmm.
the title established by Jordan. That was one of the last things he did is I'm writing the very end, and this is the last book, is A Memory of Light. So I feel like that's got to be a something, but I don't know what.
Yeah, I think I can elaborate on that, but I want to wait till the next section because what he does with that light
Yeah.
is important.
So chapter 48 is short and rapid fire because it's just several. It's Elaine, Tom, Avienda, Min, Logain, um, and it just quickly switches to their POVs as they see the light. So I didn't really have much thoughts on this, except there's lots of feels, as the kids would say.
Yeah.
Except Jordan was always more than just feels. So to me, this chapter is kind of a meh.
Yeah, lots of fuels. It kind of closes some loops. One thing that bothers me though is a lot of times we say, "Oh, well, how did this happen?" or whatever, and it's a timeline issue in these books, but we have time stamps on this one. We get to Logain, and they're like right in the aftermath of him saving all the refugees and the
Mm-hmm.
people looking through the bodies and everything. Timeline though doesn't work because this is in this moment he's seeing this light, so we know where he's at. This is a timestamp. So go back a couple chapters. Matt saves the day, Battle of Marilor over, he consults his generals, then he goes to Thakandar, and all of this stuff happens, and then we get to this point. Why was he not briefed that there's a slaughter going on? At the exact moment, he would have been, you know.
The only thing I can think is that one, maybe they didn't know because it was in the rear area. I mean, the only way Loge knew about it is because Androl and his group just happened to stumble into it
Yeah, but
and then
Androl said
jumped
he
over
was
to go
looking
find
for
him.
Matt and he couldn't find him, so all the other generals would know that this was going on.
Yeah, that's true. The only other way I could justify it is that the the fight against the Trollocs didn't take that long. It's just the cleanup and the aftermath and the taking care of people has been taking a long time and consuming a lot of Logain and his people's time. I don't know.
Yeah, it just bothered me a little bit because
Yeah.
I mean that's a significant chunk of time because Matt had to travel to that outpost, get on a tow rack, and get up in the air, go the distance, crash, go through all this fight, travel around the battlefield, and then this happens.
Hmm.
It's not like it was, all in a spur of a moment where he just took a gateway there and everything happened.
Yeah. All right. Chapter 49, parent section. You already said you had thoughts. I'm curious what your thoughts are. Uh,
49.
um, my first thought is actually the very opening paragraph is a, whoa, what the heck? Everything was dead. That's quite an opening sentence. In the wolf dream, parents stumbled across a rocky wasteland without plants or soil. The sky had gone black, the dark clouds themselves vanishing into that nothingness. Okay. And I'd been commenting on because I've been paying more attention to this stuff and I found it interesting that the storm was so much worse in the world of dreams
Mm-hmm.
and that it was scouring away everything in the world of dreams. And now it is the nothing from the never ending story. And my thought was, is this symbolic of the closeness of the battle, of the fact that even though the last battle has been won, the real battle hasn't been? There's still a chance for the Dark One to win here, or is this simply the universe pulling the plug and hitting the reset button?
I think it's a testament to collective consciousness.
Hmm.
Nobody's gone to bed yet, right? So the world being destroyed, remember I brought up several episodes ago, the world is a reflection of people's perception of the world, or the world of dreams is a reflection of people's perception of the world, and all these people were dying at once. And I think that's why the world was ripping apart
Hmm.
because the tie to it was our consciousness and was what they would call a soul in these books, which used to be what we called consciousness way back in the day. And now we've reached a point where everybody's rebounding from this battle and things are starting to grow in the real world, but we haven't registered that yet. We are registering
Hmm.
that in the moment. So it hasn't recorrected. It's going to be, it's like what happened early in the world of dreams might happen late after the fact. So it just, to me, that makes sense. I don't know if that made sense coming out of my mouth, but
Oh, that's an interesting thought on it because we have speculated before that wondering if a lot of the idea of souls and the world of dreams and all this we have postulated before, is this Jordan offering his thoughts on what is consciousness? What does that mean? Uh, and is there a physical element to that? Um, anyway,
let's see.
then he goes into the pit of doom and there's Lanfear.
Yes.
Okay.
Which I actually didn't think was so. I didn't think this was horrible because this is what I thought should have happened to Isam. I think his mental get over it would have been actually killing him without him knowing he was there. Something old Perrin would never have done.
Hmm. Yeah, this is uh he's able to get over the compulsion that she puts on him because the worlds have blended and he is essentially in both places, so he's able to use his wolf dream mental tricks to make the compulsion go away in the same way that he made the balefire go away because it's just a weave. um and he thinks as he kills Lanfear, so let me find it. This was one test at least that Rand would not need to face. So I do love that moment of
Hmm.
This is why Rand has his two friends and why they're all three Tavarin. And this is one of the points of Perrin and and Matt is they have to be there to do the things that Rand can't do, either because of his personality or just because he's only one man. And um my thought was actually of, this one test that Rand would not need to face. And I thought, well, not need to face again, because I take you back to the end of Fires of Heaven, which I meant to mention last time, and I forgot that I think when Rand was mourning, okay, when Rand was crying, he was weeping for all of these deaths. That was masculine mourning.
Hmm.
And I meant to contrast that with look how he acted on the docks. It He was unhinged. He was just sitting there crying, not able to do anything and except berate himself. He was becoming more and more unhinged in that period of the books, and it just continued to spiral downward, contrasted with how he properly mourned these people who were dying for him. But before that, Lanfear says something here that made me go, what? And I don't know if you have a thought or if anyone else has a thought, comment on it, because, um, geez, where is it? Uh, yeah, okay, here it is. Um, so it starts with Perrin saying, You want to save the Dark One? Perrin said, raising a hand to his head. You joined us, I remember. She glanced at him. Such an inferior tool, she said, smelling dissatisfied. I hate having to use it. This makes me no better than Grendel. She shivered. So we're explaining what's going on here. He's under compulsion. He doesn't
Hmm.
realize it. He's fighting through it, just instinctively. But she says something really weird here that jumped out at me and made me go, wait, what? If they had given me more time, I would have had you fairly. Wait, who is they and what the heck is she talking about?
I'm assuming they could go in several directions. I think it's a combination of Moradin keeping tabs on her, which is why she kept
Hmm.
having to disappear,
Hmm.
and also Rand making the move when he did. So I think they is Moradin and Rand.
Could be. I had no idea. And that jumped out at me of, wait, what is she talking about there? All right.
Yeah, that
And
that would be my guess. Is those two people because she's gonna project, she's gonna externalize because she's
mhm,
Lanfear. She's going to blame any failure she has or anything she has to do on the men in her life, which is the one that controls her with the little thingy, whatever it is, and the one that she is scorned ex-lover of, you know.
yeah. All right. Did you have more parent thoughts before we go to the end here?
994. I'm gonna say it's like 8 pages away, but I think it was a Perrin thing.
Yeah, but it's in the
It's
epilogue when
it's
he
yeah, it's in the next.
goes
Yeah,
after
yeah.
when he goes and finds Fail. Yeah. Um, all right. So the last couple of pages, last page and a half of this chapter is we switch back to the final confrontation where Rand seals the Dark One away. And he says something interesting or thinks something interesting here as he he doesn't just put a patch on, but he seals it as if new. Um, with this new form of the power, Rand pulled together the rent that had been made here long ago by foolish men. He understood finally that the Dark One was not the enemy. It never had been. So there's a heck of a lot going on there, as is Jordan's way of, first of all, he's making a hell of a metaphysical point there
Hmm.
that we are our own worst enemy, is what he's saying without saying it. That's why he's so good, is
Well,
because he
yeah,
doesn't have to say it blatantly.
because this never exists if humans didn't bore the hole to begin with.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But But the thing that jumped out at me was this new form of the power. What does that mean?
It's a combination of
Yeah.
Sadar, Sadin, the true power, which is the dark one, and this is where the light comes in. I believe the bursting of the light was the thing that is it's his apples. It's the thing that
Well,
is
I don't
inherent
think the
within
true
him.
power was part of it, but yeah, right before that he says,
I thought he said he's
uh,
using the true power when he grabbed the dark one in
well,
that last
he
section.
the true power is surrounding side in and side R so that the dark one can't touch it.
Yeah,
So
no, but I'm
the
saying
true
yeah,
power is a buffer.
yeah,
But
but I'm
what he's
saying
but
in
what
the
he's
in
weaving is it says he wove something majestic, a pattern of interlaced sidar and in their pure forms. Not fire, not spirit, not water, not earth, not air. Purity, light itself. So that is what is new, quote unquote, but perhaps is actually old. Perhaps one could postulate this was how the power was originally wielded when it was first discovered,
well,
or maybe originally intended.
it's the antithesis to the true power, right? So the true power comes straight from the dark one. Maybe Sidar and Satan come from the creator, and he made it binary on purpose
Yeah.
so
But it
that
also
nobody
made me
can have
wonder.
full power.
The
Yeah.
other thing it made me wonder is this new power is does this have anything to do with what Rand is going to do at the very end here? I don't think so, but it was just a thought that popped into my head. But then the very very end is we get a short little section where it switches to Moraine, and I thought because this is the end of the book, and then we have a relatively lengthy epilogue to wrap things up. I thought it's so fitting on both a literary and personal as these characters become personalized and become real. It seems so fitting that we see the end from Moraine's point of view. With everything she had to go through to get here, with how long she's been working on this has been her sole focus of her life for 20 years and all that it has cost her. I find it fitting that we see the very end. The blackness in front of Rand hung like a hole, sucking in everything slowly bit by bit. The hole shrank away until it was a pinprick. It vanished. I love that that is from Moraine's point of view.
Hmm.
It just seems so fitting.
Which
All right.
it's a very organic closing of it, where before
Yes.
they shoved the plug in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um. All right. Do we want to continue yelling at the clouds and go through the epilogue, or do we want to save the epilogue for next time?
Let's see what
We
notes
want
I
to power
have.
through this.
I only have 3 notes for the whole epilogue. Let me go through them and see how
Okay.
important they are.
Well, let's go through. I'm going to be asking more questions than answering, and so I'll leave the answering for next time and see what
Okay.
Isomorphic, Scott, anyone else out there, whatever. If you have thoughts on this, um, then go ahead. All right. So the first thought right off the bat is it's Rand's point of view, and again, I feel confident this was written by Jordan himself, which just makes it more frustrating. Damn you, RJ, because it seems like some Deus Ex Machina bullshit that out of nowhere he sees a figure kneeling down beside him. Yes, a woman whispered. He did not recognize the voice. Yes, that's good. That is what you need to do. What? Okay, first of all, what does he need? What is he doing and what does he need to do? But more importantly, who the heck are you and where did you come from? He recognizes that she's wearing Aiel clothing and then it's an old woman. And so my first thought was, is this Nakami? And where the heck did she come from and why is she here and what is going on?
Mm-hmm.
Because we know from
Unless
what we
it's his
talked
mother.
about. Well, there's something I hadn't considered. Yeah.
I just did this moment. So.
But that would have to be an intervention of the creator for his mother to be here
Yeah, but if you're going
because we know
to
she's dead.
if you're going to like he said when he was in the nothing, he
Hmm.
said You made a big point about how he said, this is how I describe it in my head.
Mm,
I can't really describe it, but I can describe it the way I see it in my head. If
yeah,
you were to see a nurturing figure, it's probably going to be your mother.
yeah. Well, the thing that made me think Nakami is that because it is so vague here, and going back and reading what Sanderson, when he finally revealed what that was all about a few years ago, is he said Nakami came from the notes and was an idea of Jordan's, but Sanderson fleshed it out. So I'm wondering if he personalized and anthropomorphized whatever this is. And
Mm-hmm.
then that's where the character of Nakami came from as Sanderson's invention, but came from this and whatever notes are surrounding this very brief passage of what the heck was that and what just happened. Um, all right, and then uh we've got Matt and it's bleh, whatever, and then Perrin and Loyal going around.
Yeah, well, before Loyal, my note on this parent section was, when was this book written? It was 2012,
Yeah.
2013 was when it was published, so it was written around that time. Anybody who knows the show, Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, Uncle Phil's big moment. It's like written on paper with Perrin and Nynaeve here, where he just kind of like, and Will Smith would break down on Uncle Phil's shoulder. Here you have the exact same thing
Mm-hmm.
from Nynaeve. I was like, did he just copy this or uh,
I don't know, but it's fitting. You know,
well, I mean, it's one of the
um,
best scenes in cinema, so I guess it makes a good scene here too.
yeah.
1000. Yeah, loyal. I
So
know what he's trying to play off of here
yeah.
is Loyal's, oh, humans are so hasty, but he's trying to make him hasty.
Hmm.
And the humans are the ones that are grounded here. But I don't know, it just didn't play for very well for me.
All right. So speaking of more questions, all right. So 897 for me, which is the end of this loyal section where Nynaeve is talking. And Nynaeve, he overhears Nynaeve say, "It's not fair. Why should he die when the other one gets better?" Um, and Loyal is inferring, and so are we, that he's talking about Moradin is getting better, Rand is continuing to get worse and is dying. Nynaeve seemed troubled, blah 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 blah. Um, and then where is it? Uh, Down a little further, talking about the three girls. None of the three seem to care at all. Okay, the only thing that makes sense to me is that the reason they don't care is because somehow, some win, they've already swapped bodies because the girls would know where the bond is.
Hmm.
But then more questions because how, why, when?
It had to be at the moment with where our mysterious Aiel woman showed up.
Mm-hmm. All right. But then,
Because she's like, that's what you need to do. He's doing something.
yeah, unless she's referring to the you needed to carry the body out because he's carrying
Hmm.
Moradin. That's why he trips and falls is because he's lugging, this dead weight with him. And unless she's referring to, yeah, you needed to bring the body out. Um, then we switch to Matt and Tawan. It's fine, whatever. Um, More Perrin breaking down because he's finally admitting, quote unquote, to himself that Fael's dead. I do kind of like my Gideon section because it's such great poetic justice of I like that she's in the epilogue and that we get a nice little ending
Hmm.
for her. That's
I just feel a little deja vu with this one because it's exactly the same way Elida went.
mhm.
It just,
There's a
yeah,
little bit of that.
yeah.
Um, Nynaeve comes out, lets everyone know he's dead. Um, I like her confrontation with Avienda of, you know something, dang it, and you're going to tell me because you can't run away from me. Um, but I one of the reasons I like it is because it's a good moment for both. Is Nynaeve is being Nynaeve, and there is this briefest of moments where Avienda looks a little concerned, but then gathers herself because she's her own strong character.
Hmm.
And as much as she might want to confide in Nynaeve, as much as she may know how much it means to Nynaeve to think that Perrin or that think that Rand is dead, she also knows she needs to protect Rand more. And
Hmm.
we see that in a little bit when the three are gathered around the pyre and are saying, okay, what's next? And they say, well, we make sure that everybody thinks that Rand is gone for, whatever reasons. Then we switch back to Perrin and he's going nuts, and then he finds Fael. Um, I find it interesting that Brigitte is able to remain behind a little longer after all the other heroes have gone. Um, I almost like her moment with Elaine, except Elaine is still being insufferable. She's
Hmm.
just not as insufferable as usual. Um, all right. And then
But
we get a
yeah, it's actually a good Brigitte moment
Mhm,
because all that time together with Elaine being insufferable and actually kind of a little bit of a power hog, Brigitte understood that and got over away from her because it's not the boy's fault,
yeah.
you know. And this is actually not a good section for Elaine. You said insufferable.
Well,
She's
where it's
she's
almost good is when Elaine says thank you for making that decision for me, is that on some level Elaine recognizes I should not do this. This is the queen bee part of me talking, but the right thing to do is not to hoard the horn. It needs to go away again.
yeah, and of course we as the reader, and Elaine wouldn't know this, know that it wouldn't have worked anyways because it needs to be under the banner and for the dragon.
Mhm,
And uh, any political machinations she would use from it would only be threat. They would never be carried to
mhm.
fruition. So,
Yep. Yep. Um, but also the reason I say it's not redeemable is because we've seen her too many times make too many bad decisions. That little throwaway of, yeah, thank you for doing that for me because I know it's the right thing to do. It might have taken me a while to no, we don't trust you to make the right decision
well,
anymore.
and also Over needs to be under witness protection too, because he's been
Mhm.
known to blow the horn and nobody can blow it but him unless he's dead.
Yeah. Um, Speaking of bad decisions and frustrations, is we have a time cut here, and then we get a short section from Tam's point of view.
Which I thought was
Um,
very well written from a certain perspective.
yes, but as I have said frequently with Sanderson sections, and I don't know who actually wrote this, and so who to lay the blame at here, but in a vacuum, this is poignant. It's good. It's kind of coming full circle from where we saw Tam with his sparring with Rand and his knowing that this might happen. And it in a lot of ways it reminds me of the end of Star Trek 2 with the subdued way that Shatner plays the death of Spock and his funeral, and his voice cracks just ever so slightly. People make fun of Shatner, and he's become kind of a caricature when people do impressions of him, but that was marvelously well acted. If you want a good analysis of it, go find Drinker's video on it. It's one of his Why Modern Movies Suck videos, where he breaks it down technically, and and that's what it reminded me of a lot. So it's a great moment for Tam, but then it made me mad because the girls know he's not dead. I know you want to protect him, but if anyone should know, shouldn't it be the guy's dad? And we, the reader, can infer that, all right, at some point Rand will probably reveal himself to Tam because of that bond, because of that connection. So maybe it comes out all right in the end. But to me, what should be a very poignant moment is ruined by the fact that we all know he's not dead, damn it. And you three in story know he's not dead, and you're letting this poor man suffer.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah, I can semi justify that is in two ways. From the Machiavellian perspective, how much more convincing is it to the world that he's not there
mhm.
if this display that has to be organic plays
Yeah,
out?
yeah.
But on the other side of it is he's not going to get to see his son again. This is actually better closure than
Mhm,
just I can't see you anymore. I have to go hide away, and and just knowing that he's out there, because we're pretty good at grieving and then overcoming as
mhm,
a human species. But if you're grieving something that's still there, we're not built for that.
mhm.
That's like being ghosted, right? It messes you up in the mind, at least for a while.
Yeah. All right. And then we get the girls, it's men's point of view. And this is where Avienda says, now we make sure that everyone well and truly believes he is gone. And you can understand why, but it's the mechanism that pisses me off because then we switch to Rand's point of view. And as he wakes up, and he goes through these thoughts and uh he thinks he has all this stuff. Um and Olivia apparently hadn't known what he would want to wear. She had been the one to leave these things, of course. Wait, what? No, 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 of course. No. Damn you, RJ. This is now he later admitted he was being snarky here. Um, but he very infamously said, as the Who Killed Asmodean furor took off on the internet and became way bigger than he ever thought it would be, is he very infamously said, it's intuitively obvious to the most casual observer. Screw you. No, it's not. And he later said he was hamming it up and he was trolling, is the word, the language we would use now. Um, because he didn't think it was going to be that big of a mystery and he loved that it became something more than he ever intended. And as one of the big at the time uh fan sites put it, you know, something along the lines of, yeah, but you have to remember that Jordan is a nuclear engineer and he's using intuitively obvious in the way physics professors are wont to use the term. Is no, no, it's not. That's why not everyone is a physics professor. Um, but the reason this jumped out at me and maybe yell and scream at Jordan in my head is that when Rand wakes up, this seems to be the first time he's conscious. This moment here, because he seems surprised to find his hand and he goes for a mirror to look at his face. Now, you could say that the surprise is, oh, cool, it worked. So he knew or hoped what was going to happen. But since he's just now waking up, that means he would have had to have arranged all of this with Olivia well before he went into the pit.
Hmm.
How, when, why, what? So many questions. And I was very purposefully, knowing we were getting to this point, scrutinizing every bit I could find, especially in Knife of Dreams, where he's spending time, where Olivia is there with him. Well, really from Winter's Heart, she's with him. And I'm like, there's got to be a hint here somewhere. There's got to be a clue about what is happening here. I got nothing. Maybe someone else does. Maybe someone saw something that I missed. Ugh.
I mean, it could be by proxy through Min, because Min would have been the one most privy to the strategy.
Yeah. Uh,
And she was also around Olivia a lot. So, yeah. It,
but I don't think we ever see her stop disliking Olivia.
mhm.
But she's going to kill you. No, she's going to help me die. And she doesn't like her because of that. So we do know she figures out the Kalendor thing, and
Hmm.
that was helped Rand and her together seemingly came up with this plan. But I don't think we ever get a sense that she figured out. But then to that point, again, more questions. Rand thinks about that viewing of she will help you die. How? What the hell did she do in this process? I don't think we ever got a hint to. I mean, we know the basic mechanism of what happened here because we have seen it growing and growing and growing and becoming stronger and stronger since that strange link first joined Morden and Rand. So we know they have this very strong link, and so that's how whatever happened was able to happen. But I don't think we have the slightest clue the mechanism.
Hmm. Yeah, we get they cross the streams. We get, and then they're connected from then on. But yeah, I just passed out when with some Aiel woman near me, and I woke up in another body.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think Sanderson knew what to do, and it might not have been written in there.
Yeah, I'm wondering how many of these Rand scenes Jordan wrote. This very last scene, we know he wrote himself because we were told
Well,
that
and
he wrote it and wrote it a long time ago.
I think I said in a spoiler section way at the beginning of this whole process, it's actually quite evil. Body swapping is, it's got to be some sort of necromantic art that is
Yeah. So, um, they go. He. I do like the thought at the end of that section there of he's the dark humor irony of Moradin is the one who's being cremated with all the honors of the Dragon Reborn, and Rand kind
maybe
of chuckles and walks away.
maybe Moradin did it. Because I was just thinking of that body swapping, that kind of thing. What would be the mechanism? We actually do have precedent here. We have the advent of Osengar and Arengar. They were fully fleshed human beings whose souls were swapped.
Mhm.
So maybe it was a product of the shadow. Maybe the technique used there, Sindane is another example of a soul being put into a body,
Yeah.
and something about Shale Ghul and Moradin and all of these things were the answer to it. Actually, to use the Dark One's presence himself to pull it all together.
There's an inference though a couple of times where the Forsaken are talking about this. There's an intimation that that has to be a freshly dead body. That the Dark One can't rip a soul out, but he can put yours in to a freshly dead body. So, anyway, then we get a Cadsuin scene, and it's fine that
Well, that
Cadsuin.
that might be why the slow dying process.
Hmm,
So when the Rand body finally died was the moment it happened. That's why he was so surprised when he became conscious.
hmm, who knows? So, speaking of questions, there was something else that I hadn't really noticed before. After that little brief Cadsuin section, we're back to Rand for the end here. And when he's trying to light his pipe, um, by instinct, he reached for the one power to light it. He found nothing, no sight in the void, nothing. He paused, then smiled, and felt an enormous relief. He could not channel. Just to be certain, he tentatively reached for the true power, nothing there either. And why the enormous relief that he can't channel?
That's a good question.
That was something that I hadn't noticed before, and it made me go, "What? Why?" Um. Anyway, so there's another while we're asking questions to ponder, and maybe we'll figure out some satisfactory answer at some point. Um, and he thinks some more about Olivia and that she had gotten a bunch of gold, and this was, again, to me, further proof that he had to have had this thought, this plan that he made with Olivia had to have been done before he went to Shalgol. But I don't know when, I don't know how, I don't know why. It's just maybe I missed something. Anyway,
Yeah, but then
um,
the way he does light his
but then
pipe,
he does light the pipe.
it's a
Okay,
very World of Dreams-esque method.
exactly. And I had not realized, I've been waiting to get to this since way early on in the process when you started talking about the world of dreams and how it's way more important than we realized as a meta theme going through the whole books. And that's when it dawned on me, holy crap, Rand somehow exists in both places, is what I think is going on here. Is that he is able to manifest things as if he were in the world of dreams.
Which is a very dark power to have.
It's
There is no spoon.
but it also makes me wonder, I mean, unless he just wants to, then why is he writing? If he can just manifest something, why doesn't he just manifest himself where he wants to be? Are there limitations to this power? I don't know.
Well, I think he wants to wander, though. I think that's a
That
character trait.
that's a big
Yeah.
point of this
Yeah.
whole last couple of pages here is he just wants, there's
He
a
wants to
world out
be
there to be
free.
seen where I'm not the dragon reborn, where I'm
Yeah.
just a guy.
His biggest complaint the entire 14 books and a
Yes,
thousand
yeah.
pages
Especially
is
the
that
last several.
he's forced down this fate, and he finally lives
I
in a
don't have a
world where
choice.
he's
I don't
not
have an
fated.
option.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep. Yeah. Um, and then we get to the very end, and we end as we began with the wind. The wind blowing. This wind was not the ending. There are no endings and never will be endings to the turning of the wheel of time, but it was an ending. That is what I can say about the end of the series. It's, well, it's an ending.
Well,
Just
they definitely called the gene pool of the weakest.
oh geez, yeah.
Yeah.
So
Well, I say
lots of
that. I
questions at
take
the end.
that back because the weakest are the ones that didn't show up to the battle. But
um, my what closing thought here, without getting too in depth, is one of the thoughts I had with that last sentence was, I can remember being a young lad in middle school and reading the Lloyd Alexander series, the Terran the Pig Keeper, for anyone familiar with that, which the Black Cauldron, for anyone
mhm.
familiar with that, the Narnia Chronicles, the Lord of the Rings. I can remember first reading those and getting to the end and not wanting it to be over. Like, yay, I'm almost done. I want to hurry up. I want to see how it ends, but I also don't want it to end because I didn't want to leave this world. I didn't want to leave these characters who had become real, you know? And here I didn't want it to end because it wasn't satisfying. In a lot of ways, what it reminded me of was one of my favorite franchises was, it still kind of is. I recently rewatched it, is the Stargate franchise. One of the problems with it, though, is that they were always under threat of cancellation.
Mhm.
And so they didn't really have satisfying conclusions because they didn't know if they were going to keep going or not. So there are basically like three endings to that series. The first one, SG1, because there were a couple of times where they thought they might be getting canceled, so they did something that would be an ending. That
Mhm.
and that's why I thought of this, is it's not the ending we would want, but it's an ending if we're not able to keep going. Well, when they finally did get to the end, the problem was this isn't, like the end of Cheers or MASH. This isn't a sitcom. You had long running storylines that span multiple seasons and you left them hanging. Now, yes, they knew, they were able to negotiate with sci-fi that, all right, we will wrap up these two hanging storylines in direct to sci-fi TV movies. So what they did is they created a satisfactory ending for Stargate SG-1 that was, you know what, in a vacuum, as I've used the phrase a lot, in a vacuum, that was a good series, not series season, series finale that left you with a satisfactory ending.
Hmm.
But it wasn't a good ending because you've got these hanging storylines. So there was no satisfaction, or there was no height. There was just, okay, that's done now. And that's how I felt when I got to the end.
Yeah, it's really hard to judge because we had to switch authors, and no one can do me like me,
Hmm.
and no one can do Jordan like Jordan. And tough ask for Sando. I think he's got some character flaws that played into it. Like I said in the last episode, he's just not as funny as he thinks he is. He's just not as good a speechwriter as he thinks he is, and all of these things. Those are in there, but ultimately, we were always set up to be a little disappointed just for the fact that he can't beat Jordan.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, where we started here was because the show sucked, and one of the reasons it sucked is the one of the reasons modern stuff in general sucks is setup and payoff. We
Hmm.
had so much setup, and the final payoffs just weren't going to have the same setups
Hmm.
because it was up to someone else to finish that off. All right. Well, those are my final thoughts, and we can get more into the weeds on some details next time as we maybe try and suss out what the hell happened at the end.
Yeah, and definitely leave your comments and leave nothing off the board, even if it's, I mean, we've got all 14 books now. We're at the end, so any topic
Hmm.
is fair game right now. So go ahead and comment on the individual things we talked about today, but then also cap it off with, hey, there was this thing I was thinking this whole series, and
Yeah.
just like he thought, it didn't play out like I wanted it to. Or even tell us, hey, I don't agree with you, this played out perfectly for me.
Hmm.
So those are all on the table. We'll do an kind of a recap episode next time, and then we'll decide where we go from there.
All right. We'll see y'all next time.
Yep. See you next time.